I think gentrification is when the whole neighborhood is wiped out. Mm-hmm. When you bulldoze things over and then you erect something that the existing community can't afford to live in. My name is Giovanni Balderas. I am a native from Oak Cliff, grew up there, still reside there today. And so I created an outdoor art project called Casita Triste, which is a response to the gentrification, displacement, and lack of affordable housing in Dallas, primarily Oak Cliff. What better way to kind of bring awareness than using art? And I sincerely believe art could be a catalyst for change. The issue is that most working class people can't afford to live in Oak Cliff anymore. And so the only alternative they have is really bad housing on either the outskirts or an area of Dallas or in areas that people don't want to live at. In the 1970s and 80s, you start to see white flight happen. People start moving out to the suburbs, and so minorities move in. I think that some of the housing has gotten really expensive. I think someone was telling me the other day that I think their house is probably worth like $300,000-$400,000 for like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, which is crazy. Which anyone coming out of college with a college degree probably couldn't afford, that. Even my friends who happen to be like also artists, but also full-time working artists, they can't even find a decent place to rent. Like the average is probably about $1,000 to $1,500 a month. And if you're looking at someone who's making like $2,000 a month, that's half your income. That's not even including utilities, your electric bill, water, and transportation. So you can see why, working class people, sometimes they have to get roommates, to make it. And it shouldn't be that way. This city is one of the most wealthiest cities in the United States.
The buildings itself, or like the restaurants and stuff itself, they're pretty nice. I mean, if you look around, it's pretty hip, it's trendy. But then you go like a block down the road and it's not the best houses right now, kind of run down. I think just remodeling that stuff, and even if it's not like the most trendy and hipster stuff in the world, just making it look nice, I think would just attract more people.
I think it's like hard to get people that want to do it themselves, you know what I mean, like finding motivation to actually remodel a home. I don't think a lot of them have just lived in it and like are okay with how it is and don't see the beauty of like what it can be, and I think that just applies to a lot of areas of like you just get used to what you're living in and just used to the area around you, and you're just like I'm going to accept it and not moving to anything that's like actually better.
Most of the time, they can't get a bank loan to renovate their house, and and some people do renovate their house as well, but it kind of stays the same.
I don't like the fact that people being pushed out of their homes, because like where I grew up at, homes are getting torn down left and right. Just to put up a lot of stuff that some of the stuff I don't think is needed. The people who are doing the building and stuff should talk with everybody and not just somebody, not just force people out of their homes.
Are you familiar with David Spence?
I am. Through my conversations with him, he believes that gentrification is a good thing, that it's a myth. First and foremost, he's a developer. That's his job. To go in and make money off of projects. So I can see where he's coming from, but in the same instance, I think that where I think he falls short is that he doesn't take into perspective the working class individuals who can't afford to rent in Oak Cliff. They're gonna have to move to the suburbs maybe, but also if we think about the long term of things, usually people who own their houses and they usually pass it on to their children, and so it builds equity in a sense where you can use the equity in your house to pay for your kids' college. Your kids could eventually move in, and you continue to kind of make money off of that. So. You know, I have these personal associations to it because, you know, Oak Cliff, I've seen the changes, right? Good and bad, growing up. And the one thing that was always constant was the Latino community, right? And what I love about Latinos in general is the amount of love they have for their families and the extent that they're willing to go, you know, to take care of them.
Oak Cliff has a lot of the older homes with the character, if you will. We're bringing the new urban look to town. And I think a lot of people like their very low maintenance living. So we have a warranty, so a new product here in Oak Cliff, and helping property values also. So we have a land development team that develops and then purchases all of our properties. So I think they just look at the space that we're going to need and then the location. I mean, we love the location. Kessler Park, as you guys know, is a very prestigious area. And then land value and also views. We're called High Grove because we're at the highest part of Oak Cliff here. Yeah. So we've got some really great downtown views. Before we actually started building here, this was like a Section 8 apartment housing.
What's going on down here? Yeah. You know, for them it's just another attempt to walk these streets and drink some wine, but for this, it is the people's livelihood that's at stake.
I was gonna say, I recognize your face.
You know, it's like, how dare people come down here to my neighborhood and then ask me if I have a freaking green card?
I do think there is hope because there's a new generation coming in. And I always advocate for these individuals to register to vote. That's the most important thing, that we elect representatives from the community, but also people who can identify with our needs and our concerns because they know. And that's the biggest detriment to this city, is that people don't turn out to vote. And so what happens is that this small minority who turn out to vote, well, they get the things they want. Meanwhile, the majority suffers. So if we can only get that majority to get up and register to vote, things would change. So go out and vote.